Hey, Masters of Speed. It is the Terra Master introducing the State of Speed podcast today. Is this the fifth episode? Or
I believe the fourth.
the fourth? All right, getting ahead of myself here a little bit, but that's okay. This is the fifth episode. As you can see, it's just me and Drake, but the topics we want to talk about, we didn't want it to become too outdated. So, speaking of those topics, Drake, go ahead and tell them.
All right, so last weekend we had the Remote Duel Extravaganza, um, and that was the first big event really for us that we could play midterms in. I think
Yeah.
I think anywhere because
Yep.
midterms had just come out the day of Friday for retail release. So there was a little bit of a little scurry for people to try and get the cards in time. But what I want to know is, do you think that the new cards? Do you think it mattered if you entered this event without the new cards?
It didn't for me, but because I didn't have it. So I can tell you for a fact that it not only didn't matter for me, but I didn't see very many people on the new cards either.
Right.
So it's just like it. If they were around, they were like a little bit, and we'll go more into detail of like what we did see, what we didn't.
Yeah. I would have liked this to even just have been a 1 week later, so more people could have had the cards. It. I don't want anyone to have not entered because they didn't have the new cards. There's certainly decks, if you look at most of what topped, didn't need the new cards, but I'm sure there were some people out there that were like, "Oh, I can't play my water deck. I'm not entering." And that's a bit unfortunate, but that's how it is. Um, so what did you play for the event? And then what did you play against the most?
So I ended up entering all three giant cards, not the main event. And I played Crystal Beast on Friday and Sunday, and then Beatdown on Saturday. As far as what I played against the most, it was such a mix. Like it was everything from I played like stall to like there was some kind of I played beatdown, played you, and then there was I did play like a water deck, maybe two. I played a sevens deck, so there was a little bit of new stuff in there, but it was mostly just like things we already knew, and you kind of knew how to play against it. You tested against it. The new box doesn't really matter for it. Just things like that.
Yeah. So I actually wrote down what I played against, and both of our predictions from the days before the event were kind of right, where you're going to play against just a lot of crazy stuff. It's a new format, and people want to try out new decks or old decks with new cards.
Yep.
Um, so I did play against 9 different skills,
Oh,
but then
nice.
the other part of our prediction was that Beatdown and uh, TP Volcanics were going to be two of the most played decks, and I fought both of those 4 times each. And the only one I was kind of wrong about is I thought Crystal Beast would see more play because that was a very established, known to be a meta contender that you didn't really need anything new for. I only played against one Crystal Beast deck, and so one looking into the future Crystal Beast deck, and then I also played against one Crystal Transcendence. Um, and then some other decks I played against one time was Light Control. I was Neotrans deck playing Digging. I played against a Rat Blader deck. I played against Heroes that was on the skill Here Goes Something. And I played against Forbidden Cyberstyle, believe it or not. Um,
Huh.
so this opponent, his Speed Duel collection was just the original GX box. He didn't own any cards before or after, and that didn't hold him back from entering. So I thought that was pretty cool. Um, but yeah, no, I was a little surprised to see so few Crystal Beasts in the event. Do you think that has anything to do with its matchup against like Beatdown and Twisted Personality?
Um, Probably right because it we know it's kind of bad against beatdown. Like if you play beatdown with Crystal Beast, you're really hoping that they don't draw Banisher. Otherwise, you're kind of in big trouble. Like it's not done. You're not like you don't auto lose to it, but you have to have the exact correct like combination of cards at that point, which is hard to do even with looking. And then as far as the TP matchup, I think it's like maybe 50-50, right? Maybe Crystal Beast is slightly unfavored, where if you get the correct start, and then you're able to play correctly, and then you have like a couple of tech cards in your deck that are built to uh, hit the stall, then you'll do really well. But if not, you might be in trouble. So
Yeah. I think Dust Tornado is pretty good in that matchup just because
yeah,
they're not going to be able to pop your cards with Blaze.
yep,
Um, and they're not going to be able to resolve Wildfire because you chain the Dust Tornado to the Wildfire.
exactly,
Um, and they don't really set monsters too often, which would be something that would slow you down,
right.
I think. Um, so the only real issue in that matchup is the fact that they can just summon the 1900 multiple
Well,
times.
that and the other issue I found was that if they gain too many life points, you
Mm,
can only deal 1800 damage at a time. Direct, because your direct attacks with Tiger only do 16. So at most, you're doing 1800 damage per attack. And if they're gaining 1500 per turn, you're dealing essentially 300 per attack per turn, I guess, if you're only getting one attack through. And that's really rough because that was what happening to me. And I'm like, I'm doing 300 damage per turn and giving him a TP counter.
right.
Like that, I'm not getting anywhere. And eventually he's going to be able to kill my Pegasus. And I have to find a way to put another monster on the board to start doing 16 or 1800 damage again, which is like worthless, right? And there were times where I had DD Warrior Lady, and I'm like, I'm literally just canceling out your life point gain to give you a TP counter. Like, that's absolutely horrible. So if they get set up correctly and you move too slow, which Crystal Beast obviously can get hands that can make them move very slowly, then you're at a huge disadvantage. Like you have to go fast, which Crystal Beast can
Right.
do, but it's like half the duels you'll be able to go fast, half the duels you won't.
Yep. So I think the other problem is the beatdown. Yes, you can summon a banisher against them, and then they cannot use their Crystal Beast traps.
Mm,
But also, they have so many beaters that just get over your monsters.
yeah,
So you can Crystal Regeki them, which is pretty good, but conclaving them back to the hand is they're just going to summon it again next turn,
exactly.
right? So if you don't kill them, they still have the threats. You
Right.
still have to deal with them again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that deck for future events. I think it is a pretty consistent deck. I think Crystal Regeki is a fantastic card, but it has issues with getting over bigger monsters. So decks that run a lot of those bigger monsters make this deck maybe not a good choice.
Right. It's if it was a deck that ran like a few monsters that were bigger, like as their boss monsters, that'd be great, right? You have enough outs for the boss
Yeah.
monsters, and then you're looking good. But it's when all of their monsters essentially, right? Because if Banisher gets boosted by beatdown, it's also 1900. So it's when all of their monsters are bigger than Pegasus that you're like, oh, well, I'm never gonna have enough removal for all your monsters, right? Because even if you open two traps, at most you can draw one per turn after that, and there's no guarantee you can constantly be set up to activate those traps too. So yeah,
Yep. And then I don't know if we mentioned this. You got second on Friday with Crystal Beast, right?
yeah.
And how'd you do the other days?
So I played Beatdown on Saturday, and I think I got top 8 and lost to Gaia.
Okay.
I think that's one of the matchups for Beatdown that's kind of like maybe you're slightly unfavored, maybe it's 50-50, but it's just Gaia is bigger than your monsters on your opponent's turn, right? Except for
Yep.
Jinzo. It's bigger than all your opponent's monsters. And then I made the misplay one time where I attacked with Jinzo and didn't play around the sphere, which made Gaia bigger than Jinzo because Jinzo got switched to defense mode. So maybe if I would have played around the sphere Kuribo until I had a second monster that could have also attacked over the Gaia, I would have been fine. But again, it's like what does that? Like I would have to exactly draw like Charging Gaia to summon next to Jinzo, right? Because Cyber Dragon can't be summoned if I already have Jinzo on the field. That's very slow. And then I knew my opponent was running Sword of Poison, multiple copies. So it was just
Okay.
like, do I risk the sphere or do I risk opponent drawing Poison Sword? So it was kind of like do you attack or not? But yeah, and because I had Jinzo, I obviously couldn't. I didn't have Book of Moon, so I couldn't like rely on my traps to stop Jinzo from being killed. Jinzo was going to die if it got attacked with the poison sword. So it's a rough calculation. So like the combination of a monster stronger than all of yours except Jinzo, solitary sword of poison, which makes it stronger than Jinzo and way stronger than everything else you have. On both turns, if they have the poison sword, you can't even attack into it. And Sphere Karibo, which again stops you from attacking over the Gaias. Like a combination of those three cards, the correct combination, plus the back row hate, which is literally the entire Gaia deck. All of that gives you problems. So that's why I think it's a slightly unfavored matchup. And I lost to it, so yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there is a deck in this format that is unbeatable.
Yeah.
Like even Moth level, which Moth was technically beatable, but I don't even think there's a deck quite at that level, which
Yeah.
is good. I think that's healthy.
It is.
Um,
But oh yeah, on Sunday I lost to Stall in top four and then in the bronze match. So I lost to Giant Rat Stall in top four and then TP Volcanic in the match for third place. So I think I can't remember now, but I think I could have played the Volcanic match slightly better. Oh, that's right, that's right. I set Mind Crush without leaving a card in my hand in game three, so I made that mistake. I forgot Mind Crush has a requirement. So I couldn't Mind Crush the Ladybugs when I tried to, and that was like after that point it was kind of too late to try to do it. So yeah, I hit myself on that one, but I don't know if that would have made me win the game, but it would have definitely given me a chance. Where because I couldn't Mind Crush that turn, and like the next card I drew was too important for me not to put on the field right away. So like at that point my opponent already knew I had it too, so it changes everything, right? Once you flip up the Mind Crush and like, oh, that's an illegal play, so you have to put it back face down. Now they have the information and it changes the trajectory of the game. Whereas a surprise Mind Crush can swing it around for you. But yeah. Anyway. So yeah, if you have Mind Crush, remember to keep a card in your hand.
yeah. So I played Beatdown all 3 days, and Friday I got first. Saturday I lost to Twisted Personality only. And then Sunday I had a few losses because it was the Swiss event for a main event. I lost in top four to a beatdown mirror. I lost in rounds to a beatdown mirror. And then I have to admit this, somebody in the world will get mad if I didn't say I lost to Heroes in rounds as well. Um Now it was a 30 card hero deck. So not optimized, but it was nice to see them top at all.
Yeah,
Um,
it was.
and the skill he chose, I think, is probably the most hopeful skill for the deck, and it's not new. It's Here Goes Something. So it gives your guy plus 800 if you only control one hero once per duel, and it can attack all your opponent's monsters.
Mm-hmm.
So one time he made a Nova Master with that skill, attacked over my two monsters, and drew two cards.
Hey.
So that's
Yeah.
I don't. What is that? Like a +4, basically?
Yeah,
That's
I mean
very
I
good.
mean if you can get that exact playoff, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Uh
in game three, I had like Cyber Dragon Gaia, and I set three, and I passed. He
okay.
straight flushed me for the
Oh,
+2, and he goes, flip over his Sparkman, use the skill on it to make it 24, and attack both of my creatures. So his straight flush was kind of like a 5-for-1
yeah.
because I couldn't use battle traps on that Sparkman.
Yeah, it's rough.
So yeah, that is how he got me. I I don't think his build was necessarily good, I do think that if you want to try out a cool rogue deck like Heroes, I would start with that skill. That skill seems to have a nice ceiling of OTKing people. I think he
Yeah.
did it to a few more people because he got into top 8.
I mean, yeah, with the Nova Master play especially, right? If you can clear the back row somehow, and have Nova Master up, and you can like attack two monsters for with 3400, you're probably getting over anything. And then you're drawing two cards, which is kind of absurd.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's pretty good.
yeah, it was cool. So the other thing that may have held people back from playing this time, maybe more than the cards, was they increased the entry prices
Yeah.
because an interesting reason is they don't have any more normal speed duel packs to give out. So normal speed duel packs are only worth about $1.50. So they were having tournaments where entry was $7 for Winamats, and you would get like 4 packs of Trials of the Kingdom. $7 is very affordable. You could do 3 of those in a day, and you've only spent around $20. Cool. But now they are giving out OTS packs, which is great. It's a much better product. However, you get 3 of those, you're paying $17 to enter a Winamet, $22 to enter a
Yeah.
main event.
I mean, it's like I've said to you before. I'd rather they kept it at $7 and only gave us one OTS pack. I think people wouldn't mind that because one is what you normally get for entering a locals.
Yeah.
So just keep the price low, have people enter, and if your concern is like the prize tickets or whatever system they have, then just lower the number of prize tickets you can get from speed duel events. Like it's not, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Um, so yeah, I mean that probably hurt a lot. The price ticket thing hurt a lot too. Is last time there was the event that was used to like farm tickets for non-speed duel players. But between that and not having the new cards, I can tell you I didn't play any side events, any Winamats because I was going to use that. I was going to play maybe like two or three, not that many, but I was going to use that to test like new decks. And because I didn't have the new cards, you can't really do that. So that's why it's not a thing that happened.
Yeah. Um, I think the entry fee thing is, I it's a bit much of a jump is the only problem.
Yeah.
So maybe what you said is a nice solution of like, hey, just give out one OTS, still do $7 for a Winamat, or we could just meet in the middle and do 2 OTS packs for like $11.
Right.
That's that's only about $10 for
Right.
a tournament entry. That's not too bad.
That's not too bad.
Uh,
Yeah.
Maybe you're not entering, 9 over the weekend at $11, but maybe you're still entering like 6 instead of you're entering like 1, 2, 3 at
Right.
most.
And here's the issue. I hope they don't blame this on just speed duels itself not being popular or the ban list because the ban list has a lot of flaws, right? Because as we've talked about, Stall still won quite a bit, but the ban list itself is much better than what we used to have, which was we still had Stall burn, but you just had an oppressive moth deck with it, right?
Right.
So Stallburn is slightly weaker now. And the issue honestly isn't the ban list and what the ban list hit, which was really Moth. The issue is what got hit by their skill erratas, right? One thing I think is people would be a lot happier about this format if you could still play full power Cyber Angels, if you could still play full power Unions, but you can't do that because the skills those two decks used have been errata.
Right.
So I think the problem isn't that there is a limited list. The problem is that Konami decided to take all the old decks that weren't oppressive, right? Cyber Angels, Unions are just two I gave an example of. A third one that could have been cool to mess around with, which is Serpent Knight Dragon with Carboneton being added, right? And they took all three of those and just went, no, you're not going to play these anymore. right?
And Fusion Party as well.
Yeah, and Fusion Party, right? So you essentially also took out, you made Dragoon a lot weaker too. So you took four decks that would have probably been tier 2 or 3 ish, right? None of those would be tier one. Maybe CAs could compete for a tier one spot, but in my opinion, none of those four decks would have been oppressive, right? Spellproof is the only one I agree with. Get that out of
Yes.
here. But
Yep.
those four decks, having been around, would make the format a lot more interesting, especially because of the midterm box and how we're going to talk about that. So I don't want to get ahead.
Yeah, so my problem with the erratas is that they hit skills that weren't oppressive,
No.
right? So I think Spellproof Armor did need a hit because you can make Floodgate Jinzo for or Spellproof Jinzo, for
Yeah,
instance.
yeah, yeah.
Um, that's not fun for anyone.
No.
Obviously now we're talking years back, but Moth, TP, Inner Conflict definitely needed those hits. Those were oppressive. You basically had to play those skills or nothing else.
Right.
Those are good erratas. Um, the erratas on the Fusion Party, the Union Combination, Ritual Ceremony, that I don't think those were necessary. I think you could have dealt with those on the ban list, and most of those decks did get hit on the ban list as well,
Yeah.
if not all of them.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been a better way to handle it because the skills themselves weren't a problem. Um, the only argument that those decks were a problem was that they had some cards that were too strong. Unions, for instance, you could have hit Union Scramble. You could have put Union Scramble on the limited one or limited two, depending on how hard you want to hit it, and left the skill alone, giving us an errata only to make what the card does
I
clear.
mean, they did put Hanger on the two list, right? You would think that's enough, but
I mean, right. I wasn't necessarily saying, oh, hanger to two and
right, right,
scramble to one. I'm
yeah,
saying like, however you want to slow that deck down.
right,
I think using the ban list was enough. All right, so for the Serpent Knight skill,
yeah,
I don't actually think hitting it was wrong. They just hit it a little bit too hard. It would have been fun to still mess around with it with Carbogeddon. Um, but yeah, if it was left untouched, it could have potentially been oppressive. So I don't think hitting it was wrong, but again, just you hit it a little too hard that we can't even have any fun with it.
yeah. I think for that one, you have to. I think just being able to not stack the cards would probably be good enough, and maybe if you just like nerfed the one that lets you add a card from the excavated cards to your hand, so you can't just keep grabbing free vigilance, right? Because that was a big problem with that skill is you summon your Serpent Knight and then you essentially have your vigilance as long as it's in the top four cards of your deck with like a monster that you basically get a free vigilance you can set. So that was a big problem. So as long as you hit that part of it and you don't allow them to stack the vigilance on top either, then that probably makes the deck, fair.
Yeah, just with the cards go to the bottom,
Yeah.
and you can only add a monster. And then they also said like Serpent Knight has to be the only monster you summon to that turn to
Yeah.
flip this skill. And that's where they took it too far. It's like you can't use Carbogeddon with it. Like, well, that's no fun. You gave us a new
Right.
cool card and
I
said we
know.
can't play it with an old card. Okay. So, what do you think after, the experience from testing the last few weeks and the results from the Extrav, what do you think the meta looks like right now?
I think it looks very similar to what it did before the midterm box. Unfortunately, I think all the new decks from the box, right? And there's a few of them, right? You mentioned heroes, we mentioned sevens, we I don't know if Roids got brought up, but Roids is the thing. There's like legendary ocean stuff, water, um, koalas. All those decks are like they're like all rogue decks. They're all decks that can occasionally pick up wins, right? And you can go on a win streak with them sometimes too, right? If you get lucky enough, you can top sometimes, but I don't think any of those decks from what I've seen so far are going to give you the consistency you need, the consistent win rate you need to take them to a big tournament. Um, because even a level 7 monster with 2400 or 2600 attack points that can't be attacked, it basically can't be run over in battle. Even that has so many weaknesses if you build the deck entirely around having 5 or 6 of those monsters, because you probably want to play other good level 7s, at least one, right? And then you have to play other cards that are win conditions because the skill only lets you attack with one monster. So I think, again, that restriction specifically, what they've done is they've made a skill that could be really good, but then they put that restriction on it that makes it, oh, so I have to have other cards in my deck that are probably suboptimal to be my win condition, right? Like Jirac Spinos, like Shield Crush. You have to have other cards in your deck. Final Attack Orders is one people have been messing with, right? Exiled Force is one I came up with where you can just remove their monster with Exiled Force. So you have to have something else, though, which is kind of like not that great of a card on its own, right? Because like Shield Crush isn't that great in all the situations, right? Neither is Exiled Force. Spinos isn't great in every situation. Like it feels like you have to fill your deck up with, and you'll know this term because you play other card games. Win more cards, right? Where if any of the cards I just talked about are good, whether it's Final Attack Orders or what, if any of those cards are useful to you, it means you're already ahead, right? So if you get those cards when you're not already ahead, that means those cards are bad. So to have to build a deck that, one, draws the Gate Guardian pieces consistently enough, two, has the actual win conditions, which are just win more cards, and three, has good cards which allow you to actually efficiently summon the Gate Guardian pieces. It's tough to build something that does all three of those things without getting to too many cards. And if you get to too many cards, you just increase the odds of you bricking by drawing just to win more cards and like the pieces to open up, which is just not enough on its own, right? So, and Crystal Beast is also a very, very bad matchup. Like the deck just can't stand up to it. Six removal traps. There's nothing you can do against that. So that,
right, that's like 6 turns that they're attacking you directly.
yeah, exactly. And they're stacking, so they're like, it's a very high likelihood that they're going to have enough removal traps to win the game. They only need like 2 or 3, let's be honest. So like, yeah, you can get lucky and they don't get any traps, but that's like you'll win 1 duel out of 10. Good job, I guess. So it's, that deck just isn't good enough. Is there a deck you want to talk about?
Well, I actually want to talk about sevens a little bit.
Okay.
I think from midterms, it is probably the most likely deck that I would even put as high as tier 2. I don't think I would put anything else above Rogue. At the moment, I would love for somebody to surprise me, come up with some great techs, and hey, guess what? Water or Roids is tier 1. We had no idea. That would be great. But from everyone's testing, what we've seen so far, I think it's most likely sevens that is probably going to be the only tiered deck.
Yeah.
But how a friend of mine explained it to me, what he doesn't like about sevens is the deck is a very A-B deck. So you need A, the tribute summon level 7 in your hand, and B, the tribute monster, the tribute fodder, right? Black Terra or Breaker, whatever you're using.
Right.
So with that deck, whether you're on 20 cards or more, you could just see too much of A or too much of B, and now your deck doesn't function. And this is before we even put in the text, right? Before we put in the Book of Moon, the whatever you're using, right? Shield Crush, Final Attack Orders, Poison Sword. those are just more moving parts making the deck even less consistent because now you're not just worried about, oh man, did I not see any sevens? Oh, did I not see any tribute? But now you have these other moving parts that are just like, cool, I drew a poison sword. I don't have anything to equip it to.
Yeah. No,
Or
exactly.
I
It's
drew a shield crush, it has no target.
right.
So you were kind of talking about that, but um like for the decks that I think are probably tier one, it's yeah, it's pretty much the same stuff that was before midterms, right? So it's like TP, Beatdown, and Crystal Beasts,
Mhm.
and then also Rat Box variants are probably at least high tier two, if not tier one.
I will say, I think the best place to play sevens, the skill, Beware the Paradox Brothers, might be in Ratbox. And like that, it's something I've had like an idea like I got yesterday, right? Like you Ratbox is so flexible, people are playing Cyberblader in it, right?
Right.
So I think you just run Sangha, like literally just that, right? And you run the rest of your Ratbox deck very normally. And it's your monster. If you see the opportunity to try to win the game, you do it. But like even then, it's like maybe it's good there, maybe it's not. So like I don't think you should build an entire deck around sevens. I think you need to play a deck that functions on its own, and the Sangha can just be like the big boss monster of the deck. So that's probably the only way to do it if you want to do this. Um, but yeah, I don't know. You want to talk about Legendary Ocean?
Oh, yeah, sure. So that one's definitely rogue
Yeah,
because when it gets its thing going, it's a powerful deck, right? When it is drawing correctly, because you need to get out your Kairyu, but that's not it. It because that's just a 2000 beater that's unaffected by traps.
yeah,
You then still need to get out a Daedalus because you need to win the game. You need to clear the board.
yep,
So so you need that summon to also not get, let's say, floodgated or booked. And then you need that ability to resolve. So now you could potentially be swinging in for game with a 2600 here.
yeah,
And then if it's game two or three, you need them to not have waking or you need to have an out to waking. So some type of access to a second field spell, whether that's access to another Kairyu Shin summon or access to just you just have a metaverse or another field spell in hand already
right,
to pop whatever the waking summoned.
yeah,
But so it's a cool deck. It's fragile, and I think that's the main reason it's rogue. Um, I think for other rogue decks, Gaia because it has some great matchups, honestly,
yeah,
and it has some not so great matchups. When you're playing against like a rat box deck who's putting stuff in defense mode naturally, you're like, Cool. I will love to draw two and discard one every turn. That sounds great to me." While piercing through, okay.
yeah.
And then the beatdown matchup.
Yeah, we talked
I
about
don't.
it.
Yeah, we did talk about this. I don't know. I actually don't know how positive it would be for the Gaia player. But on the Gaia player's turn, at the very least, they are attacking over your monsters,
Yeah,
which is nice. Um, and then for other rogue decks, the list is long, so I'm not going to name everything.
right.
But I think like Dragoon is actually a rogue
Yeah.
deck.
I think anything with Blazeman and a hero lives, whether your target is Nova Master or whether it's you're combining with Dragoon and you're using Volcanics for the Nova Master version, or you're using like just Dark Monsters for the Dragoon version, which is probably Dogma Plasma, maybe one more Dark Monster. Uh, either way, that's Rogue, right? Like that's something you can because you can turbo out a fusion monster, which is usually decent. And now with Fusion Party being forcing you to discard a card anyway, searching the poly and then activating it is basically the same thing. So you might as well use a skill that's useful to you in a different way rather than your skill being your fusion because Blazeman gets you the poly anyway. So yeah, there's rogue strats with Blazeman, but yeah, I mean, again, it's too much to go through all of them, but it just it's like we talked about. Nothing can consistently, for one thing, none of the new decks can consistently beat Crystal Beast. I see nothing in any of those decks that matches up well with Crystal Beasts. So it's kind of like if you're playing a new deck, you're going to lose to Crystal Beasts. You're probably unfavored against Beatdown, and you're probably not favored against TP Volcanics either. Because none of the decks basically do what it does, right? Like Blaze Excel, Wildfire, Rocket, plus Staples really just beats everything.
It
That's
could, yeah.
that's new. So like I just it's tough, and it's why I don't like the erratas for one thing, because they didn't give us good new cards in order to evolve the meta. The meta only evolved backwards in a sense, where it's kind of like, oh, these old cards aren't good anymore, so play these old cards instead, right? We
Yeah,
don't want I don't want everything to go backwards. We need things to move forward towards new cards and new skills being good, not the other way around.
right. So one thing I was liking about this meta is that the rogue decks feel a little more hopeful. Not that, oh, these rogue decks are going to become tier 2 or they're going to become tier 1. Rather that you have a little higher odds of winning a tournament with a rogue deck than you did during Moth format. Um, During Moth format, you're facing 3 Zomas, 3 Parasites, 3 Nightmare Wheels, things like that. Your rogue deck's probably just not going to do it. Where here, if you're confident that you want to play one of these rogue decks, you know going in, okay, I don't have as good of odds as if I would have picked one of the big like 4 decks, but it's not hopeless.
No,
So that's kind of cool, honestly.
it is. We're again, it's like you said before. We want someone to prove us wrong on this. And obviously, I'm not like gonna give up. I'm gonna keep testing the new decks to see if we can still come up with something, because there's so much we haven't tested everything. Um, there's definitely other things that you can do. So we'll see if something does pop up, right? Like surprise me. Maybe on the next podcast we'll be excited. We'll be like, wow,
Yeah,
someone found this amazing Nova Master build that's
it's happened
crazy.
before.
Yeah, it's happened before.
It's happened before. We're halfway through a format, 2/3 through a format. A deck is discovered. It's a contender.
Yeah.
It uses cards that weren't being used, or a skill that wasn't being used, or both. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Um, so we've talked about we've definitely touched on this already. Um, but just to go over it again, the health of midterms.
I think we need an updated limited list, not ban list, but ban list would be good too. Ban a few cards outright. But we need something to hit stall. So if they're hesitant to errata TP again, I think Golden Ladybug needs to be put on the list. Um, and maybe so does TP. Maybe put them both on the same list. Um, and then I think they're going to hit looking into the future, because the Crystal Beast cards aren't the problem. If you actually had to hard draw the combos, it would be fine. The issue is you don't. So, looking to the future is the problem, and because it was a skill made for Diamond Dude, right? It's very obvious that's what they were going for. I think Konami is going to, or the Speed Duel team, not all of Konami, is going to go ahead and kind of errata it to be specifically a Diamond Dude skill, which let's be honest is going to kill it, unless they buff it too, right? Like ideally, you'd be like, activate only if you control a Diamond Dude, stack the top 3 cards of your deck, and that's it, right? No more restrictions on it.
Yeah.
That would make Diamond Dude actually playable, because then you could guarantee you could stack your good spells, whether that's Allure of Darkness or Delta Hurricane or whatever it is you wanted to put on top of your deck there. But we'll see if that ends up happening. But that would be the optimal fix because it doesn't kill Crystal Beast. Crystal Beast would still be a good deck, but they would lose their ability to basically cheat, which is huge. And then you actually have a Diamond Dude skill that's playable. So like that's we talk about health, right? Going back to what the actual question was, that's healthy. But other than that, I think it's we're going to be in the testing phase for I just looked at the date. It's like mid-October. So we're going to be in the testing phase for probably like another 2-3 weeks, maybe.
Yeah, I would say
But
at least.
yeah. But after that it's going to start to settle down and that's when we're going to need something like an updated list to shake things up. And if we don't and if we're right and the testing doesn't prove anything about the new cards and new decks, then it's kind of the same old story, isn't it? Where we were stuck in Moth meta for a long time. Now we're going to be stuck in, Crystal Beast beatdown TP meta for a long time. So that's not good for the game. If you look at the history of the TCG, um, very rarely did you ever have these moments where the meta stayed the same for almost a full year. Uh, and that can't be. No card game would tell you that that's good for its health if nothing changes for 1 year as far as what decks are competitive.
Yeah, 3 months is the normal cycle.
Right.
Obviously, they are occasionally any card game will make sort of mistakes where they make a deck that's too powerful. They come out with the new cards that aren't quite up to the level to compete with it. Otherwise, they would be cool cards. And then the list they make doesn't hit that old deck hard enough, so it
Yeah.
just continues to be the strongest deck. Like, yeah, it's okay to make mistakes. Every card game has done it multiple times. But with the fact that Speed Duel releases are every 6 months instead of at least every 3 months, which is how most every other card game does it, every other format does it, you find yourself where you have to be doing something other than product releases, like giving us a list halfway through or something to change things up. Because yeah, you don't want to get, even if the format is not bad, like I actually don't think this format is bad. This is one of my favorite formats, and I said that before midterms, and we're practically in the same format. Um, I like this format a lot, but it's a lot of time to be playing it. Over 6 months,
Yeah.
basically, we have had this format. That is a long time. So yeah, I think the list would help quite a bit. I do think we will get one for sure. I definitely think we will. How soon? It's hard to say. Could be as soon as in 2 weeks that they update the list.
Yeah.
The erratas are obviously going to be a bit later. Um, I did like your idea with Diamond Dude because you are, instead of just adding a restriction to it and making the card just completely worse, you're taking away a restriction and adding a restriction. So it's worse for everybody not playing Diamond Dude, but it's better for people playing Diamond Dude
Hmm.
because you could say go reinforcements of the army, summon your Diamond Dude, use skill in the same turn.
Yeah.
That's cool
That
for the
is.
Diamond Dude player.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think the health of midterms, and I don't want to sound negative because it's so early. And I don't want anybody to stop testing their rogue decks or their
No.
decks that they think can be tier one or tier two because they might be right, first of all.
Yeah.
Um, and it is early. So yeah, don't give up for sure. If you like your water deck or you think, hey, I think my water deck is real, those are both good reasons to keep testing your water deck and keep improving it. You might be right. So but yeah, with all that said, I do think that the current health of midterms is bad. I think they did not put out strong enough cards. They were scared. And the other thing is it was a 100 card set. So We knew we weren't going to get 100 amazing cards, but what what like generic cards did we really get? And I'm not saying generic cards are the way to fix the format necessarily, but what like generic cards did we get? We got Drillroid.
Yeah.
That's mostly all I can think of.
Yep. I think that's the problem. We got is that you don't go in either direction far enough, right? And let me explain that. That's like you don't make the new decks themselves powerful enough, right? Like heroes aren't strong enough, right? Maybe if they would have given us Prisma or something, that would have helped, right? Think about if you could normal summon Blazeman, Surge Poly, tag out with that right hero for the job skill, summon Prisma, substitute something, then activate the Poly to fuse with the one material you did draw, right? That gives you so many options. But they didn't. They didn't give us enough there. Then with Roids, again, there's just look, Roids is just not a good archetype. All right. They even gave us Mixeroid, but they didn't give us a field spell, which is tied with Mixeroid for the best like Roid card. They gave it to us as a skill, which means you can't play your other skills and you can't play multiple copies of it. Whereas if
Yep.
it was a field spell itself, like a card, you could actually play three plus maybe even a metaverse or two, right? So you could play 4 or 5 copies of the field spell, which you need. So without that, the deck just doesn't do enough, right? Because Mixeroid is essentially once per duel. It's graveyard effect, right? And you're summoning one monster, and you need so much setup for that. Bastion stuff, like the water dragon just not good enough. Like the skill doesn't do enough. Um, to help you get to water dragon or water dragon cluster. It's it's too much of a combo without enough consistency cards.
Yeah.
And
Too many pieces in that combo.
right. And no way to really search the pieces. Even the skill only lets you search one, which isn't good enough. And then there's Paradox, which we've spent a lot of this podcast talking about. It's a good skill, but again, it probably has one too many restrictions on it, which is that you can only attack with one monster, and that kind of hurts the deck. So because you can't kill a monster and attack directly, so
Right.
that's pretty tough. So like all four character decks aren't good enough to compete with what we already had, right? And then you talk about the generic cards. Well, we didn't really get any impactful ones other than a side deck card, which is Droroid. But it's like, okay, like if that's all 100 card set is going to do, then you really maybe should consider getting away from this pre-built deck model, right? Like the box idea was cool at first, but I do wonder if it's kind of like showing its weaknesses now, where because you have to stick to this like anime character theme, it limits your design space, and that's not something that's gonna lead to powerful cards, right? Because let's be honest, at least in those early anime like GX, most of the characters didn't play powerful cards, right? Like Jaden's deck through all of GX was pretty bad. Like even if we go Neospatians,
Right. Other than like banned cards.
right? Like 90% of Neospatian cards are bad. Like Grand Mole is good, but it's probably good by accident. So like most of like protagonists especially, right? So maybe there's some hope for the Shadow Riders block since bad guys have stronger cards in anime. And Alam actually pointed this out to me yesterday. Is that typically bad guys have stronger cards, and if you think about it, yeah, like Amazonas, Red Eyes, just to give two examples, are like decks that have better tools than Elemental Heroes does, unless you want to go really far and give a Stratos, which they're not going to do that. So maybe there's some hope, but I think they should reconsider the model for product releases and speed duels.
Yeah. So we know at least one more set will be this 8 theme deck type of thing, and that's the Shadow Riders, the Shadow Duelist box, whatever they changed the name to.
Yeah.
Um,
Duelist of the Shadows, I think.
yeah, there you go. And I am a lot more hopeful for that one. It's double the decks, and the decks are a little more open-ended, like vampires. What does that mean? Well, that means they can put any zombie support they want in there.
Yes.
Amazonis, what does that mean? Well, we already have a bunch of Amazonis,
Yeah.
so if they get a few good cards, they could be a deck.
Yeah.
Same with like Red Eyes. Some of the new stuff is less hopeful, the same way that like Roids aren't very hopeful. Um, like Cloudians, they just don't have a very good card pool if they decide to give us Cloudians.
Right.
So yeah, I would actually love them to move away from the theme deck, even though I do think this next one is going to be much better. It's double the cards, so we're going to get some things that impact more. Because we're also getting double the bonus cards, right?
Yeah.
The cards that aren't
Yeah. You're
included
right.
in the
Yeah.
deck.
Yep. Because
So,
it's 8 decks of 20 cards, which is 160. So which means you get 40 bonus cards, not just 20.
well,
So
minus the skills, right?
right. Well, no. The skills are like on top of it. So
Oh, okay.
it's yeah. So this was so like midterms was 100 cards plus 12 skills. So that'll be
Okay.
yeah. That'll be like
So
200
we got
cards plus like
20 bonus cards
yeah.
in midterms, and we'll get 40.
Yeah.
Okay. And some of the coolest cards are always in those bonus cards.
Yes.
So
Always.
40 is nice.
40 is nice.
But yeah, no, it would be nice for them to move away from it or partially move away from it, right? So
Yeah.
200 card set, 100 card set. But instead of in the 200 card set having 8 pre-built decks, just have 4,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you have about 100 just cards. They don't have to do anything about the anime. They don't have to do anything about those 4 decks that you're just adding to the card pool to make the game more fun, which should be the goal.
Right. Yeah.
Or it could be reprints if you really want to. That the TCG players want.
Yeah.
It could be reprints that Speed Duel players want. That when I say reprints, I mean ones that Speed Duel players want, right? Like we don't want Elemental Hero Vanilla's reprinted again.
You don't
We might want Nightmare Wheels and Cosmics and Breakers, just as examples. We might want those, but yeah, no, I think they should move away from the whole box being themed. So even if it's not just here's 200 cards, like 'cause that's kind of the dream, right? We just get 200 cards added to the
Right.
game.
Right.
There's no pre-built decks.
Nah.
But they might be thinking, that then we have less of a market. We're only selling to Speed Duel players. We also want to sell to people that aren't even going to use these for Speed Duels or people that don't play Speed Duels yet, right? So we want to have some precons. Cool, just half it, right? So in the 100 card set, it could be 2 pre-builts and 80 bonus cards.
Right. Yeah. I mean that's definitely the better direction to go. There's also the idea of like, look, 40 cards outside of the decks is like a decent number. So maybe you just do 200 cards twice per year, right? Like the mini box is what,
Yeah, that too.
right? Because with the ban list, the GX box actually had an effect on the meta, right?
Yep.
Crystal Beasts, Cyber Dragon, Banisher of the Radiance, Volcanics, right? Those all
Banisher's Battle
use.
City, but
What?
Banisher's Battle City, but
Oh, okay. Sorry, Cyber Dragon at least. Okay.
yeah.
Wall of D, right? So every
Warrior
one of
Lady.
those top 3 decks uses cards from the GX box, which is cool.
Yeah.
Especially Crystal Beast, like the entire deck is GX box, except like Dust Tornado and your techs, right? So that's nice. So I think the 200 card sets are almost like, in a way, far more likely. Like they're almost guaranteed to have some kind of impact if you keep your ban list updated. Yeah.
So far they're 2 for 2. Even though the second
Right.
one did take a set of bandless and erratas to really get it going.
But the ban list was like needed. So yeah, like that's fine.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, so yeah,
Um,
right. Battle City was did have impact too, right? Unions were good. Um,
Immediate.
yeah. So yeah, I mean that's the problem is midterms is just it didn't have enough cards. If we had double the number of cards we got, we might have been forced to get something good, right? Because
Yeah,
of the way the Yu-Gi-Oh card pool is. Um, there's a lot of bad cards in the card pool, yes, but there's only so many that you can give at a time. Like if I was to like close my eyes and select 200 random cards out of the card pool, I guarantee you I would accidentally select a few good ones,
right.
right? But it's a lot less likely to do that when you only do 100. So that's why it's important to give us as many cards as possible because even in, like we talked about before with the TCG, right? Occasionally there is a set that doesn't impact the meta, a core set, right? But the odds of that happening 2 or 3 sets in a row is very low because at that point you have so many cards.
It's like I don't think it's ever happened really, where
Right,
three core sets came out and none of them mattered.
right.
Um, Funnily enough, when the closest we have ever gotten to that was during GX.
Yeah. So maybe GX just has the worst cards, but then again, you don't have to stick to GX.
No, and they don't strictly, right? We
Right.
got disposable learner device just as an example. That's not from GX.
No. So they
PD
don't and
Warrior
they
Lady.
shouldn't. Yeah. So get off
Yeah,
the theme train. Like theme is good for marketing, I get it, for art, for um like for the pre-constructed decks, the themes are cool. But less of that, like you said, and focus more on improving the format. At least that's like our bias. Also, the sun is
yeah.
really like trying to hit me here.
No, it looks beautiful.
Yeah. But yeah. So there you go, Konami. There are your solutions to speed
Right,
duels.
right. And besides it being better for the players, which is obviously what we want because we're the players,
Yeah.
um, it's also been bad for their pocket. The both GX sets have sold very poorly.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, in comparison to Battle City Box, which flew off the shelves, the GX sets are you can find them anywhere and everywhere, and people are selling them way under MSRP.
Huh.
You can get the original GX box for like $17. You
Wow.
can get this box for like 9, and it just came out. Right? It shouldn't be too far under $15 right when it comes out. You know, maybe somebody wants to give you a discount, $13 or $12 or whatever.
Mhm.
You need to banish that light.
Dude, it's hitting my camera, which is the problem. So I don't
Okay.
know what I can do about it. Like it's not hitting me.
But yeah,
So
no, I think it makes
we can
sense
do
from
this. Ah, ah, ah. No. Okay, got it. There you go. I just hold my hand there like an idiot.
perfect. So I think it makes sense from a Konami standpoint as well to move away from these themes, not just from a player standpoint. So it's something that could work out for both of us. We'll see what actually happens because that's
Yeah.
something they care about. Right? They don't want to have multiple sets flop in a row. And
No,
now
definitely
right now
not.
they've had right now they've had two flop. That's a sign, right? One flop, that'll happen. Right? No matter how hard you try in any format,
Right.
one will flop sometimes. Two in a row, they got to be thinking, ooh. So
But
we'll see how Shadow Riders does. If it
yeah.
might sell amazing, it might be an awesome set for both Speed Duel players and TCG players.
Yeah.
But depends on what the secrets are. That's mostly what if TCG players will care or retro formats.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it might end up being closer to Battle City Box where it's like this set is good for the community and it's good for collectors
Right.
and it just sells like crazy and they keep making these.
Well, because look, I
Um,
can I can tell you the community. We know this because we're kind of close to it, right? The community is growing.
yeah,
It's slow, but it's
it's
growing.
slow growth,
Right.
right?
But the way you speed that up is to have a fun format that has a frequently evolving history. right? You can be like, oh yeah, we used to have Cocoon, which was good for a long time. Then we went into a GX era where we had 4 different formats, right?
Yeah.
Where we had your Crystal Beast slash Beatdown era, and then you had your whatever you wanted era. Then you had your this format, you had your this format, right? That's what's so exciting about Yukio the TCG. Looking back at it, right, is that you're like, oh, you had Goat, and then you had the end of Goat, which brought you to like Reaper. You had Perfect Circle after that. Like the fact that you can go through the history and that it was constantly evolving, because that's what makes the game fun to play. Any living card game that you can get into, uh, it's only fun to play if it's actually dynamic. If you wanted a static format that didn't change that much, I mean, people already play Goat, so like,
Right. Go Edison, whatever
right,
your
right,
flavor of legacy deck
right.
is.
So there has to be more evolution of the competitive scene, but because like it's like you said, the Battle City box flew off the shelves, but it's like I've already said, that idea gets old, right? So if someone is
Sure.
buying Battle City box just to play the pre-constructed decks, that's fun for the first time you do it.
Or once a year, even.
Yeah. But now you're gonna tell me to like, oh yeah, they're doing the same thing again with the new GX box. I'm gonna be like a little bit more hesitant to spend money on that, right?
Yeah.
So you have to come up with something new and something better, and focus on growing the game of speed duels rather than just trying to have these be individual products that people just play standalone, because that idea obviously isn't working.
Yeah. One cool thing they're doing to try and promote the game and reward speed duel players is they're actually adding Pharaoh's Tour to North America. The promo is funny.
Yeah.
It is Hero City 2.
Yep.
It is an okay hero card
Yep.
where the old promos were Jinzo, Floodgate, and Book of Moon, three of the biggest staples in
Yeah.
their card types.
I mean,
I mean,
look, Hero City 2 has the same problem that, Blaze Man does and the hero skills do. There's not enough good hero cards, right?
right,
Like,
right, right.
you think about Hero City 2, it works best with having Stratos. It works best with having Prisma. It works best with having Shadow Mist, right? The good
Yeah,
hero monsters. It works best with having Solid Soldier or Liquid Soldier. Cards that actually have very good effects the more you bring them back. I mean, if you special summon Blazeman from the graveyard, what are you going to do? Search another poly? Like, how many polys am I supposed to run in my deck to keep doing that? Right? And nothing else has an effect that goes with Heroes Skyscraper 2 Hero City, because Bubble Man can't trigger with it, and the rest of
right.
the elemental heroes we have are like vanillas. So like I don't.
Yeah, just resource advantage over time would
Right.
be,
Yeah,
but
but
yeah,
like
not
that's
actual like
right.
combo, like a
That
Stratos or a Blazeman or
right.
something.
Exactly. So it's not good. It's not going to be sought after that much. Maybe
And they have to
the
die by they have to die by battle because if you fuse with them,
right.
that won't bring them back. So
Exactly.
yeah.
So it's they could have definitely picked a better card. Cyber Dragon would have been cool, right?
Oh, totally.
But it's just that's an example. So pick a card that's played rather than a random new one you just released. Uh,
Yeah.
so I don't know. I don't. Some things they're doing well, like the fact that they're paying attention and updating things, giving product ban list erratas is cool. But I think the ideas are okay, but the execution could be a little bit better.
Right. But no, the reason I brought up the promo as a good thing, despite it being a card that maybe isn't super cared about, it does I think bring attention to the format. Um, because someone that just plays advanced is like, wait, you're saying that all of top four gets this card, so if I just have four people enter, we all get it. That's
Hmm.
interesting. So
Hmm.
maybe they all go out and buy a speed duel deck,
Yeah.
and that's like promoting the format that way. Because it's still a sort of a prize card, right? Even if it is just at a
Yeah.
local,
Yeah.
it will still have value,
Yeah.
right? Like no matter what the card is, I think it will have value.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it is a hero card that has never been printed as Ultra. I think it was just super and common and maybe Ultimate, but
Huh. Okay.
so it is. I do believe it's a new. No, it's super
It's
again.
superhero. Yeah.
Never mind what I was
Yeah.
gonna say. It's
It's
not a
not a new
new
rarity,
not a new
unfortunately.
rarity. All right, well, yeah. But anyway, it is nice to see that they're doing that at all.
Yeah.
They're still promoting the game.
Yeah.
They're still keeping an eye on the game.
I wish they would give us more like opportunities to give them feedback as the
Yeah,
player base. But no survey after the extra, so nothing
right.
we can do. We just have to hope that they look at the deck list and find something to do to fix it.
Yeah.
Um, Again, as of this recording, there's a YCS next week, Minneapolis. So I'm not expecting anything before that, but I think right after that is when we'll have something. So anyone watching this who's going to go to Minneapolis, please let them know whatever your thoughts are, whether you agree with us or not. Right,
Yeah. No, yeah, talk to anyone in the staff that you can about
right,
whatever your concerns are personally
right.
about the format. Maybe you think we don't get enough product. Maybe you don't like Duel Links ban lists. Maybe you like normal ban lists. Yeah, just let them know.
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
listen sometimes.
They do. I can tell you on the survey that we had last year now at this point, the Speed Duel survey, they did ask what kind of product theme would you like to see in the future, and I did say Shadow Riders,
Okay.
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah.
GX. So occasionally they listen, which is cool.
Right.
So yeah, definitely take that seriously. The feedback. And then on the YCS Niagara survey that they allowed anyone to answer that one question, right?
Oh,
I put Miracle Fusion,
oh,
and
cool.
we didn't
Cool.
get it in midterm, so hopefully they'll listen to that and throw in Miracle Fusion with Supreme King. Why? I don't know. Just do it.
I feel like I should have put Miracle Fusion or something a little more powerful. I just put Card Trooper because like
Yeah,
this is
but hey, that's fine too. Card Trooper would be cool.
yeah, yeah. It's like put whatever you want, right?
Right.
But like this is something that we could realistically get. I didn't want to go crazy.
Right. Right.
Not that Miracle Fusion is crazy,
Miracle
but
Fusion is not crazy.
it's not. It's literally only crazy with like specifically Absolute Zero,
Yeah.
which is a card you probably shouldn't get in Speed
No.
Duels.
But
Not in 5D's era, at least. If they want to do a shout out, like a little flashback once we have synchros and stuff, and they're like, here's F-Zero, cool.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't think we should get that anytime soon. But yeah, so with that said, like Miracle Fusion is fine.
Yeah.
Um, Prisma's also fine, Konami. Like, come on.
Yeah. Prisma's fine. Like they're also they're a little too afraid to make things powerful.
Absolutely.
And I think that's not good. You have to give us strong cards for us to be able to do something with it. Another thing Alam pointed out to me yesterday is they have the stall decks in the format. It's not that they're really good, right? Like Ladybug is a terrible card by itself, right? It's essentially a -1, right?
Sort of.
The issue is the aggressive cards in the format are bad.
Yes.
Like the best aggressive strategy we have is beatdown, and other than Cyber Dragon, like charging Gaia is not a good card by itself.
No.
It's not. So like Pitch Black Werewolf is not a good card by itself, right? So
Yeah,
other
we're
than
just using the best things we have.
right, that's the problem. Like other than Cyber Dragon, your aggressive cards are all so bad. Even if you built a fully aggressive deck like Beatdown, you're still like 50-50 against stall. And that's not healthy. Speaking of health. So,
Yeah.
right?
But yeah, my final thoughts for this podcast is
Yeah.
that look, if you're going to a big event soon, if you're going to Minneapolis, I suggest taking Beatdown or Twisted Personality. if you are going to a Winamat, a local, anything like that, you just want to play speed duels, play whatever you want, and that's that. There's a million decks out there that are good enough to play, which feels great.
Right.
So don't be discouraged by like, oh, you guys said there's only 4 meta decks. Well, maybe, but there's over a dozen that you can get some wins with, you can
Right.
have fun with, and I think that is, especially in low stakes events, that is the point of
Yeah.
entering,
Yeah.
is to have fun.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, I understand you might have other goals at a higher tier event. That's okay. You have options there too.
Yeah.
Um, as far as the health, I think it can improve, despite what all the possibly negative things I've said about it. I think it can improve. Um, I think Konami, as long as they keep doing what they're doing, they're going to keep getting better. Um, in terms of keeping in touch with the community, um, giving us more support, giving us more frequent ban lists. Because even if they give us one in 4 months from now, let's say, that's a lot quicker than when we had to wait like 3 years for one.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're going to keep improving. I think Speed Duels is going to keep getting better. And yeah, that's all I've got for today.
Yeah. I mean, my final thoughts is just that, like, keep the format evolving as much as possible, and whatever you have to do to that to make that possible. I mean, keep it affordable. We talked about the price point of the tournament entries at the
Yep.
beginning, right? The boxes being cheap is really good. Keep it that way. Keep the tournaments lower priced than $17. 10, 12 is fine. Um, and yeah, just keep things interesting, essentially, right? You never want people to get bored of a format that's still alive and still being supported, right? So you have to do everything you can to avoid that. And hopefully they do. But I think we're done here. So the next time we'll be on the podcast is probably going to be talking about how the meta has formed, right? After more testing. So, and more results, obviously. Um, we'll see how meta has formed, and maybe we'll talk about the Shadow Riders box a little bit if there's no other news. And if there's other news, obviously we'll talk about the topic of the day. So, yeah. I guess I'll take us out. So
All right.
thank you everyone for listening. It's just me and Drake. Hopefully we'll have some of the crew back for next time. But you won't believe how hard it is to actually get 4 people when it's not their job to do this, to actually sit
Yeah.
down and do this at the same time. So it's tough, but I'm glad we could both be here since we have normal schedules for the most part. But until next time, obviously there'll be a lot of more videos on the channel before the next podcast. So until that, we will see you later. Terra Master and Drake, we're out.